Hello, and welcome to the studio. Let's see if I can back up and give you a better picture of it. Well, I tried filming this in landscape, and all I ended up getting was a video that loaded sideways, so I'm going to just keep it in this upright motion, whoops, and take you on in through the front door, where I believe there's a little dog who was going to help you tour the studio. The first thing you see when you step through the front door is the watercolor table, all spread out with a project in process. And beyond that, I believe you can see the spinning wheel. It's my Ashford Elizabeth. It's the first spinning wheel I ever owned, and it's probably still my favorite wheel to use. Over here on the left side of the studio are all of the fiber arts tools, materials, ideas, and projects. Just to the left of the front door are some plastic bins and drawers, and they're full of spinning fibers. Here's some little fibers I used for the workshop I did with the girls at the private school the other day. Here are some mohair locks, some Wensleydale samplers, and some beautiful dyed polework that I got several years ago at Maryland Sheep and Wool. There's my Sears and Roebuck sewing machine that I bought with my first paycheck from my very first job, and beyond that's a little coat that I'm going to be finishing up this fall. Here's a chair that has a beautiful needle-pointed seat my mother-in-law made for me. It was a Christmas present one year, and that pile of fabric on the floor is some very tedious mending I'm doing. Behind the mirror, in front of the mirror is me, and behind the mirror is the ironing board, and above that is a picture of the house that I lived in when I was a little girl. I loved that house, and I always miss it when I drive by when I go visit in the city. That bedroom window on the second floor was my bedroom. Here's my other spinning wheel, right here by the west window. It's a Tom Golding spinning wheel, and it has a little it's been a little bit damaged, so it needs some work done on it, and I just haven't gotten around to that. On the end of the cabinet there is one of my pegboards. It's an idea board where I can set up projects or things that I don't want to start working on right away, but I might want to soon. And these two cabinets are filled with fibers, fabrics, knitting tools, spinning tools, and sewing notions. Here's my little tea corner right here. And there's a caddy full of drop spindles and a little fairy garden. One of the things in my studio that I really love is that inside every drawer in this studio is at least one pair of scissors. In the knitting notions drawer, in the sewing drawer, in fact, that has three pair of scissors. And over there on the other side of the studio, in that drawer, are my art scissors. This is what I like to call the yarn store. These were yarns that had been bought and never knitted up into anything that I still wanted to keep at the point when I moved into this studio. Many of them will be sweaters for little girls and boys, I think, but sooner or later they'll all be knit up and I can go shopping again. Here's an interesting platform rocker. It's actually more of a glider than a rocker that I picked up in Petersburg, West Virginia when I went up there last summer. And then beyond that is a wraparound rocker that my mother-in-law owned, and she gave that to me because I loved rocking my little boy in that rocking chair. Over here, as we walk across the studio, is a little pencil cart that I like to keep all my drawing pencils in. The table that I like to do my pencil portraits on. I like to have the elbow support of a table when I'm working on a pencil portrait, and I like to do it on an easel rather than on a flat surface the way I do watercolors. These are just little rolling carts with 8.5 by 11 drawers in them that I picked up at Michael's, super cheap, probably about $22 a piece. And I got two of them because they'll not only hold photographs and things that I might need for my artwork, but it also holds files for my business. This is my bookshelf, completely loaded with, on the bottom shelf, knitting and spinning and sewing. On the next shelf, more knitting and spinning and sewing. The third shelf up are watercolor or art books, anything from how to draw to origami. And the next book, gardening books to the left, fairy tale books to the right. Here is one of my favorite pictures that used to hang in my office at the library. I wonder if I can show this without without that light. I don't think so. But here you might see a picture of a little girl and a dog running along a riverbank. Well, that's me. When I was 16, my mother did that painting. Here's my print rack that holds all of the works that I've been working on. This is my first really happy watercolor portrait that I did of my granddaughter. And then a whole lot of other pieces that you might have seen on my website at one point or another. This big hunk of green plastic I have hanging in the window is to keep the cardinals from smashing into it. They've been flying into the window for about 3 months, and I'm afraid I've knocked out 2 of them, have knocked themselves out banging through the window. So I thought if I hung something up there, they wouldn't think it was a clear space they could fly through. This is my art cabinet, and inside this are very narrow shelves that my husband built for me so that I could keep all of my different art papers labeled and spread out in a neat, tidy surface. This pie safe was another piece that came from my mother-in-law. It has paintbrushes, paints, pastels, and yes, lots and lots of walnut shells that have been carefully cracked so that I can put them together again. And this is one of my favorite Christmas presents to make. I'll take a walnut shell and split it carefully, empty it out, fill it with, put a fortune in there, and then glue it back together again, and then spray paint it and cover it with glitter, and it makes a good luck fortune Christmas walnut. Here's another one of those little cabinets, little sets of drawers, and this is my stand-up easel for when I'm working on large pieces that need to be walked up to rather than sat down by. So that's the studio, and that's the prayer dog, Juno. Juno, you want to wag your tail for everybody? Say, hi, Juno. And I hope you've enjoyed my trip through the studio.